Sometimes the best jewelry starts with a single component. Today we're turning the beautiful Carmen's Heart collection into 2 versatile designs that can be used in bracelets, necklaces, earrings, and more. So let's dive in! I'm going to start off showing you how to make this component. So this component right here, or this one, or we're going to be using the red ones today. But this is the component that we're going to make. We're going to be using square stitch, and I'm going to show you the different versatility that you can make with this particular little component. So here's where I just put two components together with a couple of jump rings to make a pair of earrings. I also completed a bracelet using the same thing, and then just attached some jump rings to the end, and I'll show you how to do all of this in this video, and then had a magnetic clasp. And then what we're going to do today is I'm going to start off showing you how to do the component using the red ones, because in my little mix from this kit I only had 4 red ones, and then these are the remaining of my flowers that I had in the kit. So with these 4 I'm going to do a pendant, but that will be on my next live. So stay tuned for that to see the full tutorial on how to do the pendant. So let's start off with one of our 8-ohs. So I've got 8, 11s, and 15s sitting here. You may not be able to see the 15s very well because it is a white color, but I just felt like the black, gray, white, and then red really goes together really well. So we're going to start off with a stop bead. So we're going to put one of our 8-oh seed beads on our thread, bring it down to the end until you have a comfortable amount of thread to hold on to. Then we're going to go back through that seed bead one more time. We're actually going to use this bead in the project, so we're just going to go through it once. Now I'm using black thread today so you can kind of see my thread paths, plus I'm using, for the most part, some darker color beads and everything. So that way hopefully you can see my thread paths and all. So we're starting off with the stop bead. Next thing we're going to do is pick up one of our roses. Doesn't matter which color that you start off with, but I'm going to do the red ones like I said in this one. I'm going to move the other guys off to the side for the moment. And I'll leave one of these here. Put the other one off so that way hopefully my camera doesn't go nuts. Then I'm going to pick up 6 more 8-oh seed beads. So I have the rose and then 6 more 8-oh seed beads on my thread right now. Pull that down to the stop bead. Now we're going to go through the stop bead in the same direction that the thread is going in right now. So make sure you're not going in the opposite direction because it'll make the bead sit in a little bit different of a way. So we're going to make sure that we're going in the same direction the thread is going in at the moment. And then that's going to round everything out. So now you have a total of 7 seed beads on one side of your rose. So now we're going to add 7 more seed beads. 7 more of your 8s. Whoops, 4, 5, 6, 7. I missed one. Now we're going to round this out and then go through this one more time. So I'm going to go through the 3 seed beads right here. I'm just going to take it 3 at a time. So I'm going to go through beads 1, 2, and 3. And then just give it a little bit of a tug each time you go through. It'll get tighter as you go further around your rose, but you want it a little bit tighter so it's a little bit easier to do the next step. So that's bead 4, 5, and 6. And then 7, 8, and 9. So we have a total of 14 beads here. And then 10, 11, 12. And then now I'm going to go through 13, 14, and then go back through 1 again. And then, like I said, just give it a little tug each time. We're going to go back through these seed beads one more time, so it's going to tighten it up even more. So if you're still kind of loose and you're not liking the tension and everything, you can just tug on it a little bit more, but we're going to go through this one more time. So it will tighten up a little bit more. So then that's how you start off your rose, and then that's the way it looks like on the side, a side view, and then that's the view on the bottom. So that's why it works as a very good bracelet, because it's got a flat bottom to it, so it sits up against your skin really well. Alright, so now we're going to start the square stitch. So if you're not familiar with the square stitch, we're going to pick up the next bead, which this one's going to be an 11-oh. We're coming out of the right hand side of this current 8-oh right here. We're going to go in the same direction as the thread's going in right now. So I'm going from the left to the right. And then I'm going to just pull it down, just like that. Now see how my thread got really loose? If that happens, just pull on the 11-0 that you just put on, and then pull on your working thread and see how it tightened it up. Now if you go through this whole step and you're still really loose, you can always go through your 8-0s another time. Using beading thread like this, it makes it a lot easier to use 8-0s, and you can go through your 8-0s probably 5 or 6 times if you had to. So definitely if it's still really loose and you're not liking that tension, then you can always do that. So now we need to get set up to put our next 11-0 on. So just go through the next bead in line. Pick up an 11-0. Coming out of the right hand side of that 8-0 seed bead, we're going to go from the left to the right. And then I'm going to go ahead and go through the next bead in line right away. It just adds, or takes away one step that you have to do. And then you pick up an 11-0, and you just continue, all the way around your rows, adding your 11-0s. So that's the first couple of steps of our component. So go ahead and complete putting all your 11-0s on, and then meet me back and I'll show you that next step. Alright, so once you get all of your 11-0s put on, you should have something that looks something similar to this. Now I went ahead and I went through all my 8-0s one more time, because since I'm recording it's harder for me to keep my tension as tight as I like it. So I went through all the 8-0s one more time. So I am coming out of bead number 14. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed through bead number 1 again. And then that way we're coming out of that first seed bead. So now what we're going to end up doing is go upwards in the opposite direction. We're going to turn our thread around, go through oh wow. Alright, so let's see if I could say this. We're going to turn our thread path around, and we're going to go through the 11-0s that we just added. Goodness gracious, sorry about that. Alright, so we're going to do just that. So we're going to go through the 11-0s, so that way we're sitting out like this. This is where the 15s come in. So in this step, it's pretty simple. Pick up a 15, go through your next 11-0. And then when you start pulling on this, 15, go through the next 11-0, and give it just a little small tug. Eventually, it's going to start hugging around that rose a little bit more than what it is at the moment. So I'll just put a couple more on so you can kind of get the idea, and then I'll show you what it looks like here in just a minute when it's all done. So there you go. So once you start kind of putting on a few beads, then it's going to, and you tug on it because it's loose right now, the tension's loose, but when you give it a nice little tug, it'll start hugging around that rose a little bit better. So go ahead and add your 15s in between all of these. Then I'm going to go through all these beads one more time. So do the same thing, because it's going to, counting is going to be one of those things that you're going to want to make sure that you're going to do, so you know exactly where your connections are going to be. So I'll show you the connection on the next clip, just in case you want to do a bracelet, or eventually we're going to be making this pendant there again. So the connection is going to be very similar, just in a different count. But meet me back in just a moment and I'll show you that. So just in case I really confused somebody on the last clip because my words were not coming to my mouth correctly, I'm going to show you this last little section. So I already have my last 15-0 sitting on here. So I'm going to go back through the first 11-0. My thread's getting wrapped around each other. Okay, I'm going to go back through the first 11-0, but then I'm actually going to go through the 15, the second 11-0, the next 15, and the third 11-0. So that's beads number 1, 2, and 3 when we're counting our 11s. And this will make more sense here in just a moment. So we're going to continue on through. So go through 11, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to go through 7, 8, and 9 of your 11-0s. I already went through the 15 after, that's fine. And we're going to go through 10, 11, and 12. And then 13, 14, and number 1. And then we're going to proceed until we get out of bead number 2, the 11-0 number 2. There's a reason for that, and I will show you here in just a moment. So now your component is basically complete. So now you need to decide, alright, are you going to make this into a bracelet like this? Are you going to make it into earrings, or if you're going to do the pendant? Now the pendant is going to be very similar to the bracelet itself, and like I said, we'll go through that on my next live that I have on how to make that, because the counts are going to be slightly different when we're attaching each one of these. If you want to make the earrings, then all you have to do is just cut or tie off your thread on your component, and then pick a place where you have an 8/0 and add a jump ring, and then on the opposite side do the same thing. So on this, when I flip it over backwards, I've got I got a jump ring on this 8/0 right here, and then the one on the directly opposite of it. So I have 6 of my 8/0 seed beads in between each jump ring. So it's on jump ring number 1 if you want to consider that, and then jump ring number 8 if you want to consider that. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. So it'd be jump ring 1 and jump ring 8 if you want to consider that. And then on the one that's just a dangle, if you choose to do that, then you just need the 1 jump ring, and then you connect the 2 together. So that's how you can make the earrings if you want to make the earrings. Now if you want to make the bracelet or the pendant, then this is what you would do next. So on this, we're coming out of that 11/0 up here, which was 11/0 number 2 out of the 14 that we added. We're now going to go down into the 8/0 that we attached that 11/0 to at the very beginning, and we're going from the left to the right again. So now we're beading in the opposite direction again. Now we're going to square stitch on our next 8/0. So I'm coming out of this 8/0 right here on the right hand side, go from the left to the right. So just as we were doing with the 11/0s, except now we're doing it with an 8/0. Now you can leave it like this if you want to, but I usually put 2 thread paths whenever I do any type of square stitch like this as a connection. And I definitely suggest that when you get to the end, because this is how you're going to add your clasp if you're doing the bracelet, is in this same fashion. You just add a seed bead at the end, just like this, and then you attach your jump ring, and then you can attach your clasp to that jump ring that way. So this is how you're going to do it. And if this is going to hold a clasp, you need to have at least 2 thread paths. 3 if you can make it, but some clasps or some jump rings are a little thick, and sometimes depending on the coating of the bead that you choose to use on the 8/0s, it may be too much. You may not be able to get 3 thread paths plus a jump ring through that too. So just kind of, you know, trial and error type thing is what you need to do. So now I'm going to get you started on the next one. So we're going to go through the 8/0 seed bead that we just added. If you're choosing to go ahead and continue on with the bracelet. So the next thing we need to do, we pick up our rows and then 6 more of our seed beads. 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to go right back through this again. So now it's essentially like we were when we just started out, where that bead, that first bead, is basically the stop bead that we started out with on the other side. So now we add 7 more seed beads. 6 and 7, and then you go through the first 3 beads, then bead 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth, just like we just did on this last clip. And of course everything got really, really loose, but that's okay. So then that's how you do that. So then if you need to, you can always rewind and go back to this to get your next steps that you need to do, and then continue on if you want to make the bracelet. And other than that, I will show you the remaining of the red roses on my live. So then this is the bracelet one more time. That's what it looks like. And then I ended up using, just in case you want to do something similar, I have, I think it was 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, the 6 of the yellow or white roses. Mine roses look more kind of yellowy, so that's why I say yellow. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the pink roses. And it ends up being a, let's see exactly what it is. There you go. That gives you an idea of what the size is for those. And then of course it depends on what type of clasp that you use. So if you use a clasp that's a lot bigger than mine, then you're going to have a different size there too. But it's somewhere around a 6.5 or so inch bracelet. And then if you choose to do the earrings, I'll show those up close again one more time. If it'll focus, there we go. And then that's the earrings. So that's a cute little set that you can make as with this one very versatile type component. And while I'm finishing this component, I actually realized why I was trying to tell you to go through that second bead. So I am currently going through my 11 and 15 O's a second time, so I'm actually going through bead number 6 right now of my 11 O's. So I'm going to show you why this makes sense here in a second, because I forgot to explain that in the last one. So that's 7, 8, and 9 of my 11 O's. And then we're going to go through 10, 11, and 12. Just make sure you're not skipping any of your 15s. If you do, it's fine, it'll just kind of stick out like a picot a little bit. And then we're going to go through 13, 14, and then back through 1. And then we're going to proceed through to get back to number 2. So if you're doing the bracelet, then you're going to want to make sure that you're going through bead number 2 right here. So that's the second 11O that we added. Now, when you go down to the 8O to continue on to add your next little 8O, add it on. I'll show you why this is the case. So go ahead and get down into that 8O, and when you flip it around, the 8O that we are currently coming out of, which is this one, I'm just going to put my needle through it so we can see which one it is the bead that is directly across from the connection point over here onto this side. So if you get confused and you're not exactly sure where you're wanting to go and you're wanting to make the bracelet, you just make sure that there are 6 of your 8O seed beads in between each of your connection points. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then connection, and so on and so forth. So that's why you want to go through bead number 2 of your 11 O's and then flip down, and then that becomes your next connection point for the bracelet. So now it makes a little bit more sense. So now that is the differences in that you can make with using this component. And then I will meet you back at a later date to show you how to complete this. This next component, we're actually going to make a little bead cage using the double right angle weave unit, and then almost kind of make it into a cubic double right angle weave. So I'll show you how to do this, and then eventually we're going to take one of the 8O rounds that came in the bead mixture in this month's collection, and then these will just fit. Okay, watch it not work while I'm recording, of course. But these will just fit just inside, just like that. And then we're going to take some soft flex wire here in a little bit, and we're going to string it along just like that. So we're going to make a nice little bead cage. We're going to turn this into a necklace. Now, the earring that's sitting out here right now, this was designed after I made this earring. Now, this earring we're going to do on the live as well. So we're going to finish this earring on the live, and I'll go into a little bit more detail as to the reasoning why I'm not doing it on this tutorial during the live, because there's a reason. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to do this guy. So a lot of y'all know I really like using the double right angle weave. It's such a versatile stitch. It is something that I use a whole lot on my channel, so a lot of you may already know how to do this. So we're going to do a right angle weave unit first. So put 4 of your cream 8O seed beads on, then go back through that first bead. And then get your beads to sit like a little cross, or basically 4 beads together, just like that, like a little raw unit. Now we're going to pick up another of our cream beads. We're coming out of that first There we go. We're coming out of the first one up here at the top. We're going to go through the one on the right. And then that puts that bead in more of a picot stitch. Pick up another bead, go through the bead on the bottom. And then that puts that kind of a picot in between. Pick up the next one, go through the bead on the left. And then you got one more little picot stitch to add, coming out of the bead on the left right now. Now we're going to go through the bead on the top, and then I'm going to go ahead and proceed through the first picot stitch. It's basically the top of the diamond. So basically you made your raw unit turn into more of a diamond shape. So now we're going to make this into more of a cubic shape. So first we're going to start off with one of our bronze 8/0s. Then we're going to pick up, I think it was 5. Yeah, 5 of our 11/0 beads. Another bronze 8/0, and then end with one of the cream 8/0s. So we have the bronze 8/0, 5 11s, bronze, and then a cream. We're going to bring this all the way down to the product. Then we're going to go back through these beads, but skipping over the cream 8/0. So go through the bronze, the 11s, and then the next bronze, and then come out. And right now we're coming out of the right hand side of the picot portion of our original double raw unit. So we want to go from the left to the right to round it out. Just like that. And when you do that, that kind of sits the beads somewhat on top of your picot stitch. So now we need to get over here to the next picot. So we're going to go through until we come out of that next one. So the next one on the diamond portion, and then do the same thing. So 8/0, and then 5 of our 11s, a bronze, and a cream. Pull that down, and then go back through everything, skipping over the cream. And then go from the left to the right through the point part or the picot part of your double raw unit or your diamond. And then that kind of gets everything to sit on top. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this last little portion with you so you can bead along with me, and then I will show you how to get it connected into more of a rectangle shape. So we're kind of doing a double crawl unit, but it's not the same way. It's kind of a slight mixture of the double crawl unit. See, I'm trying to get my starter thread out of the way. And then just make sure that your working thread is not wrapping around any of the arms. Right now it's kind of getting a little hard to keep the working thread away from the arms of everything. Alright, then we're going to go back through these last ones. Now you can do a couple of different things. I'm going to go ahead and go back through this picot, or this portion of the double raw unit, and then go back to the first one. Now you can always just swing right back around that last one that we just did and then work your way up to the top, because that's what we're going to do next. I felt like it was a lot easier for me to get back to the starter thread if I go back through the first one and then do the next step that way. So that's what I'm doing. So this is the first one, the first arm that we added. So we're going to go back up through the arm. So all the 7 seed beads that are sitting here, and then come out before you get through that cream seed bead. Now I'm holding it in this fashion. This is going to be the bottom. This double raw unit down here is going to be the bottom of the rectangle. These are going to be the sides of the rectangle, and now we need to make the top portion of it. So to make the top portion of it, I'm going to go through that cream seed bead to where I'm basically beading away from myself. So we're basically going to be beading in a clockwise fashion. Now I'm going to pick up 4 of my cream seed beads. I'm going to go back through that 8/0 seed bead that I'm just now coming out of. Let's see if I can hold it up and be a little bit closer to the camera here and hopefully not be out of focus. Now the next step is crucial. You have to remember to go through that first seed bead that you added out of the 4. So go through that first out of the 4 seed beads. Now you have to bring up your next arm. So this is the next one. I'm just adjusting the seed bead where it's sitting more on top of the bronze seed bead. So this is the next one. We're going to go through that seed bead, that cream one. Go ahead and pull it down close. And this is going to be your next of your picot stitches around your raw unit, because that first 4 that we added, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4, those first 4 are the actual raw unit, the original one. We're now adding our arms to be the picot portions, or the double raw unit parts. So then we're coming out of this one, so then now we need to go through bead number 2 out of the original 4, which is the one that is on the right side. Just like that. So now we need to pick up arm number 3. So then make sure your thread is not getting wrapped around each other, but go through arm number 3. And then go through bead number 3 of the original raw unit. And then we're going to pick up arm number 4. And then we're going to go back through bead number 4 of the original raw unit. And then when you get done with that, all of a sudden you have a diamond shape. Now the only thing that we did not do to begin with is that bead number 4 is not connected to bead number 1. So we're going to skip over arm number 1 and then go through bead number 1, which is this one. And then when you do that, just make sure your thread stays on the interior portion here so it doesn't show any thread paths. And then that completes your cube or your rectangle that we're going to use as a cage. So this is why I ended up going through that first, or going up the first arm again, because now all I have to do is just proceed through this. Let's see, where am I at? Yeah, I'm over here. So all I have to do is proceed through this bead right here. So this is the first, or the second arm. So I'm going to go through that one. Then I'm going to go down that arm because I'm getting back to where my starter thread is right here. And the starter thread is in between this bead and then this bead. And this is the bead that we want to come out of to be able to tie off. So I'm going to go down this arm. And then I'm going to go through that seed bead from the left to the right to get myself to where the starter thread is located. And then that's where I can tie off. And then you have one of your cages completed. Now, what I'm going to end up doing, or I've already done, as you can see, I've made a total of 11 of these. And then after you get that done, oh, I'm wrapping around my pliers. Of course I am, because I'm recording. Alright, and once you get that done, we're going to move away from the knot, and then I'm going to burn off here. And then that way your knot should go in between some of the beads there, and hopefully not get noticed. And then I ended up making a total of 11 of these because I had 11 of those 8mm rounds in the mix that came with the kit. So depending on how many that you want to use, if you want to use all of your 8/0 beads, then go ahead and make enough little cages to go around all your 8/0s, or 8mm, your 8/0 beads, your 8mm that came in that mix. And that's what I'm going to end up doing, and then I'm going to get a couple of the other beads out and we're going to come up with a pattern to make a necklace out of this. So I'll meet you back in just a moment. Alright, so I have most everything out that I need to complete the necklace. I'm going to be using some soft flex beading wire. I'm going to use the antique brass color because I feel like that goes close enough to the antique bronze that we got in the kit. So I feel like that's going to look really, really nice because every once in a while you can see just a little bit of the wire coming through in between the beads. I'm going to be using the cream 80 seed beads. I'm not using any more of the copper colored ones only because I need enough to be able to finish off the rest of the earring on the other one, and I don't have that many left over, so I'm not going to use the copper. So we're going to see a little bit of copper coming through because of the wire, so I figured that'll be just fine. And we've got the 11/0s, I've got all of my 8mm beads that came in there, and then I have the remaining of the cathedrals that I'm going to use that came in the kit as well. So first thing we're going to do, move the wire off to the side for a second. I have 11 of my beads. So I want to have a cathedral bead be on either side of my gauges, or my cages here, not gauges. That's a cage. So on either side of the cage, I want to have a cathedral bead. So I'm going to pull out 12 of my cathedrals and figure out how many I have left over. So that it's 5, 10, and then 12. And then that'll make sure that I have one on either end and in between each one of my 8mm beads with the cages. So now I have 2, 4, 6, 7. I have 7 left over. And I'm going to want an even amount on either end on either side of the necklace. So I'm going to take one of these out. So I'm going to have one of my cathedral beads left over, which is fine. I'll figure out how to use that in some other project. But I'm going to have those 3 cathedral beads there. Now, whenever I start off with necklaces, I like to start off with some 80 seed beads. That's just my preference. You don't have to do that, but that's just my preference. So I'm going to do 3 of my 80 seed beads. Then I'm going to do a pattern with the cathedrals. I'm just going to move these all back because I know which ones I'm going to do. So I'm going to have 3 on either side. So the pattern for the cathedral is I'm going to pick up an 11/0, a cathedral bead, and an 11/0. And then that's what that's going to look like so far. And then I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. So 3 8s, and then 11 cathedral 11, 3 more 8s, and then 11 cathedral 11. And then before I start adding my cage beads with the 8mm beads, I'm going to add 3 more of the 80 seed beads. And then this is where we're going to add our first cage. So the cage beads, you can pick up any one of these, and you're probably going to need your needle that you use to actually make this one, so keep that handy because it'll come in handy in just a second. Pick up any of your 8mm beads, and you don't have to use these. You can use gemstones if you want to. You can use any size 8mm bead that you have. This will probably actually fit probably a 10mm too, so if you wanted to use bigger beads, you could probably do that too. Just take one of your beads and then just ever so slightly push it into the center of the cage, just like that. Now this one kind of lined up pretty well. I can tell that the hole of the bead is in this direction, but I need it in this direction. So I'm going to take my needle and then go through the center of the double raw unit over on this one side, pick up the whole of the 8mm bead, and then make sure I'm going through the center of the double raw unit on the other side. And then that's what it looks like. So cool. Then I'm going to take the needle out, and then I'm just going to string it on to the wire, just like that. So now you can kind of sort of see just a little bit of wire in between the 8mm beads, and see now, oh yeah, you can see that right like that. So you can see just a little bit of the wire sticking through. So I think it's going to look neat. I hope, at least. Alright, then I'm going to put 3 of our seed beads, and then a cathedral, combo, and then 3 of our seed beads. You know what? I think I messed up on my counts. You know what? We're going to end up having 2 extra. I just messed up on my counts. So, that's okay though. That's what happens. Because I want an odd number on either side. Now, the big thing about this too, and that's what it looks like so far. Sorry, it was taking me a second to get down to where it was at. So the big thing, because I wanted to make sure that I had an even a number on this side and the other side of the necklace, but I wanted to have some on the end plus in between each one of these guys. So basically I'm going to end up with 3 extra beads. I hope this is making sense. If it's not, I really apologize. But if I get done with the rest of this and I feel like I need to add a little extra length, then I've got 2 more that I can add. I can add a 4th one on the end of the necklace, and then I can come back and add the 4th one here on this side too. So we'll see how long it looks, how long it ends up being, because this is the pattern that I'm going to end up doing. Now it's time to where I can add my next cage. So I'm going to pick up my next cage, which with my next 8mm bead, and then just ever so gently stick it in the middle of the cage. Then use your beading needle to find and line up the holes. So it's a lot easier that you take the end of your wire that keeps attaching to my magnetic clasp on my bracelet and then string it through just like that. And then that's 2 of them sitting on. So then I'm going to repeat this until I have all 11 on, and then I'm going to put on 3 afterwards. Then I'll come back and we will decide if we're going to add that 4th one because I messed up on my counts, or if we're going to keep it just a 3 on either end. I'll meet you back in just a moment, see what this looks like. So just adding the 3 cathedrals on either end ends up being almost the perfect length for me. I like to wear necklaces that are around 18 inches long, somewhere around there, and this is just about that right size. It's somewhere between 17 to 18 inches. So it's almost perfect. Alright, so I'm going to keep just the 3 cathedrals on either end. I've already put a crimp tube on one side, so I'm going to show you how to do the crimp tube on this side for those that are not familiar with it. So I have all my beads down at one end, whoops, that I've already crimped down here. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit of tension on the beads down here to try to get them as tight as I can, but you also want to make sure that it's not too tight, so it's not too rigid, and that your necklace will actually sit and flow nicely on your neck. So go ahead and curl it up in a nice little ball like that, and then that will give you a little bit of extra room. Now what I want to do is I want to cut off about 2 inches or so. This is probably a little bit more than 2 inches. It's more like 3 or 4 inches. But I like to have just a little extra just in case. That's mainly just because I shake so much. I'm going to pick up one of the crimp tubes. I'm going to string that guy on the end. Then I'm going to pick up my lobster clasp, because I already closed off the other loop, and I'm going to put the jump ring on the other side. So make sure you pick up the lobster. Then you want to go back through the crimp tube, and I love these crimp tubes by Softflex. They are 2x2 crimp tubes. They fit wonderfully. They're made to use with the magical crimper, which is a wonderful tool because I'm not very good at crimping, but the magical crimper just makes everything looks nice and professional looking, and I just love it. So what I'm doing is I'm holding on to the lobster claw clasp, and I'm also pulling on the wire here in my left hand until I get a loop that's going to be just about similar to the loop that I did on the other side. So there you go. So now we can kind of compare the two sides of the loops there. So now that I'm about the same size, I am going to hold on to the wire and everything. And you notice how I kind of moved my seed beads out of the way some, because you need to have enough room to where you can put your crimper around your crimp tube, but then not squish down on your seed bead either, because your seed beads are glass, so they will break. Now this will end up with a little bit of a gap in between your crimp tube and your last bead. If that's something that bothers you, you can play around with that until you get that gap disappeared, if that's something that's going to bother you. Me, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with just a little gap. So I'm going to squish down, lift up, turn it 90 degrees, squish, and then just turn it ever so slightly, and then keep squishing. I've said this a couple of times on my videos too. I usually do this a lot more times than what needs to be done. Usually you only have to squish like maybe 3 or 4 times, and then you have a nice little ball of crimp after you get all that done. But I tend to squish a little bit more often, because I'll show you on this guy. This little crimp, I don't know, you might be able to see that, but it's not the best crimp ever. I shook a little bit because whenever I'm holding something, and that's me shaking right now. So sometimes when I'm holding something and then that happens and then the crimp moves inside my magical crimper, and then things like this can happen too, where there's just a little bit of a divot inside that nice little round ball. It's okay. It's not going to do anything to the wire itself. The wire is going to stay in that crimp. It's not a nice, perfect little ball. But that's me. That's just what I have to deal with because of my little health condition. And I just learned how to work around it. That's all you have to do. Alright, so I'm going to add the jump ring on, and I'm using my fingernail, even though you're not supposed to. I'm going to do it anyway because I don't know where my other pliers are at the moment. They're sitting on my desk somewhere, but I have so many things on my desk right now, everything's kind of getting blended together. And then that is your cute little necklace. So put that together. I'm so excited about this one. This one I really, really enjoyed making. This was fun because I got to combine bead weaving along with bead stringing, and then we'll do something similar with the earrings that are to go along with this also. And then that's the earring that we're going to make on the live, probably coming up this Thursday. So if you like this one as well as the other project, and then this is the bracelet. Of course, we saw the earrings, and then we're going to make a pendant with the red roses on that live as well. So meet me back on Thursday, and we will get all those projects started. I hope these 2 components inspire you to create something uniquely your own. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. And if you enjoyed today's tutorial, please like and subscribe. I'll be using these components again during this week's live to create a few more projects. So join me next time and let's make new artistic creations together.